Yes, today I'm very happy to introduce to you Rohit Karnik. He's a professor of mechanical engineering, and he serves as our associate department head for education. And he understands in detail, what we have done about the disruption and how the students have reacted to it and their thoughts about it. So we're very fortunate to have him with us today. Thank you very much, Rohit.
Thank you, Dan and Dina. I'm going to start by sharing my screen. So is this visible?
Yes.
Yes.
So thank you again for inviting me to this workshop. And what I was hoping to do is to share a perspective of how the department went through this transition, what are the various efforts that we as a department did, and also some snapshots of specific subjects or strategies that we adopted and what we learned through this process. In this workshop, there'll be more detailed talks focused on specific subjects like Professor Ian Hunter or Professor Tony Patera are going to talk. So I'm not going to do deep dives in any one particular subject, but try to capture an overview. During the presentation, it would be great if you have any questions to ask them. So Ariel is going to be monitoring the chat. In case I miss a chat, she'll interrupt and ask the question so we can have a discussion. So this is a fairly informal presentation. I just put together a few things yesterday. And so hopefully it'll be more of a dialogue. And also, this is work in progress, and I'm going to share some of the things that we learned from our students. So what I would request is not to share this material beyond this specific group. So I would very much appreciate that. So the outline I was planning to cover today, just a very quick introduction to the department in terms of the educational activities and numbers, and then use the timeline of events to kind of walk through what were the different things that happened and what we as a department did. So just starting with the brief introduction. So we have over 70 faculty members, and some of them are shared with other departments. There's about 18 permanent teaching staff, and these range from technical instructors to senior lecturers and play various roles, but a major one in our hands-on classes. And plus there are some additional union staff that are not reporting to the department, but who also participate in teaching. Then we have about 50 teaching assistants or TAs at any given time. In terms of our overall population, we have about 462 undergrad students, 449 grad students. So the undergrad students is about 10% of the MIT undergrad population. And we offer degree programs. So in the undergraduate curriculum, we have course 2, which is mechanical engineering, 2A, which is a flexible degree in engineering, which has a foundation of mechanical engineering and then a flexible concentration. And then 2OE, which is mechanical and ocean engineering. And on the graduate side, we offer, of course, MS and PhD, but we also have a naval architecture program. We have a Woods Hole Oceanographic Institute joint graduate program. We have M-Engine manufacturing and an accompanying MicroMasters, where this is led by Professor Dave Hart, where students will do online classes, and then if they do well, they can come to campus and finish their degree. And in any typical semester, the department offers about 50 subjects. So these are subjects which are led directly by department faculty or instructors. And out of those, about 16 to 17 have a very major focus on hands-on component. And on the average, we have 30 to 40 students enrolled per subject. So it varies a lot from some subjects having only 5 to 10 on the lower end to some subjects having over 100. But that's basically the overall profile of the department. And so what happened this semester was very unusual, and all of us went through this unprecedented disruption. And so I'll walk through some of the timeline of events and then put the responses of the department, including what faculty and instructors did in this context. So our first real alarm bell started in March 5th, when from the MIT president, we got the first issuance of policies that required quarantine for people coming from abroad, minimizing domestic travel and registering travel, and then additional precautions on campus. And then just a few days after that, things ground to a halt. I'm just going to try to open, I think there's one chat. So there's a question, what does subject mean? So subject is just a class. Because at MIT, we use the term subject, course, and class, but then they are also used interchangeably for other things. So by subject, I just mean a regular class, like mechanics or something. So the following week, what happened was that the announcement came that all undergrad students have to leave campus. There'll be a 2-week break. And classes will resume virtually after spring break. Students are not to return for the rest of the semester. And then things became even more urgent. And at the same time, MIT already started taking steps to address remote learning by subscribing to Zoom, which was actually very helpful for throughout our education and other activities. And then ramp down of research by March 20th was also announced in that same week. So basically the halt switch was put. So what happened at the department side, we had this graduate open house that was scheduled for newly admitted students. And all of this, like tickets had been booked, hotels had been booked. But in the interest of safety and what was going on, we canceled it and virtualized it. And so that was the first department-wide major virtualization event. And it worked out quite well. And we also started to see some of the advantages of holding things online, which facilitates easier connections in some cases. On March 9th, we had an emergency departmental faculty meeting to discuss teaching and what steps we can take. And then on March 10th, based on those discussions, internally what we announced was, first of all, many of our undergraduate students were really distressed, so please reach out to the students. We started efforts including Google Doc to share ideas how to adapt, and then started workshops and started recommending hardware and encouraged immediate procurement hardware. So several people in the department really stepped up. One of them was Peter Flans, who is our IT manager. And so we had allocated a rough initial budget of $500 per instructor for teaching related equipment. So if you need webcams, other staff tablets, then we needed to get them very soon. And Peter actually went store to store to try to purchase iPads so that people would have them. And this was actually useful because later on when people started to order them online, there were often like delays of 10 days or 2 weeks. So his efforts to go shop to shop and get as many as possible were very helpful. And it just illustrates some of the dedication from our staff. Then we started a workshop series, which was titled Guide to Transitioning to Remote Teaching. And this was spearheaded by Dr. John Liu. So he's an alum of our department, and helped with Dave Hart to establish the MicroMasters program with the Office of Digital Learning. So the way MIT is structured, the Office of Digital Learning partly funds a person, which is called Digital Learning Fellow or Scientist, to really interface with departments and help with digital technology. So he was working with MicroMasters program before, and this year, luckily, we got him on board as the department's Digital Learning Fellow. And so his presence was actually extremely crucial because he worked a lot to offer workshops, office hours, make recommendations, and help the department transition. So immediately on March 11th, he offered a workshop on pedagogy and equipment for remote teaching and made very specific hardware recommendations. So if you want a microphone, these are the 3 options we recommend. If you want a webcam, this is what we recommend, or these are the setups we recommend. Also followed on with a workshop on software workflows. How do you coordinate between tablet and computer and so on. And there was a follow-on workshop later on in the semester. Then Explain Everything was a software that at that time we felt was suitable for teaching and annotation on tablets. So we purchased several licenses so that we could distribute them to faculty, instructors, and TAs. Then John also offered office hours to help TAs and instructors. And then on March 12th, we launched a virtual resources webpage in the department. So I'll talk a little bit about these soon. So the purpose of the virtual resources webpage was to consolidate all the resources and sort them by categories of use. So for research, what do you need? For support staff, what do we need? For students, what do we need? For teaching, what do we need? And we started to archive all the emails and announcements so everyone can just go to that one page and find what's going on. And at the MIT level also, this was happening, because one of the things we found was there were so many emails going on and so many changes that it's not really possible to keep track of everything. And we also included guidelines and best practices, recordings of workshops, and links to external resources. And this is just a snapshot of what that website looked like. And this is a snapshot of the menu under educational resources. So we can see the different workshops, different tools, including like Zoom bombing precautions, what to do, because that was just starting around that time. And then Canvas, which MIT just acquired for fall semester, and so on. And this is a snapshot of some of the workshops slides. So these are hardware recommendations and some of the things to think about for synchronous lectures and so on. Excuse me. So when it came to hands-on classes, in spring 2020, we were offering about 17 or 18 classes with major hands-on component, which are listed here. And they ranged quite a bit across the board. So OOA is a first year, second year ocean engineering class that actually Dan also teaches occasionally. We have OOV, which is a toy design class for first years, mechanics, dynamics and control. 007 is our flagship second year robotics, machine design building competition class. 008 is our manufacturing and design class. And then these are capstone substitutes. We have robotics, instrumentation, advanced controls, measurement and instrumentation, micro nano engineering, electronics, machine design, and design classes. So this was a lot, and many faculty were involved in teaching these classes. So it immediately placed the question as to what can be done, and there was only 2 weeks to change. And so broadly, some classes went virtual, others did remote kits or at-home hands-on activities. And I borrowed this slide from John just to think about what are the ways in which hands-on experience or learning can occur. So we can think about hands-on learning in 3 scenarios. So this is MIT campus, so this is not a bank. But so we can do things on campus where students are off campus. So maybe a staff member, instructor will operate an instrument. We can do things at students' homes. So students can build things at home or work on things at home. And it could be completely on the cloud or virtual. So there's no hardware parts. And there is different pros and cons. And we can think about these elements. So how interactive is it? So can students actually change a parameter and see the effect of the measurement? How complex can the experiment or experience be? Can the students touch and feel? And how realistic is it? So those are some of the axes, basic axes along which we can think about it. And so if we think about experiments done on campus while students are off campus, this is especially suitable when equipment is expensive, dangerous, large, and staff need to be present. And from the learning perspective, it captures the real world aspect. It has the complexity, but students find it difficult to touch and feel, and the interactiveness is usually compromised. But of course, all students can see the live experiment. If we do it at students' home, it can reduce the complexity of operations during teaching. You don't need access to the labs. Safety issues are easier to can be there, but then what it does is it allows students to get the real world feel, allows students to touch and feel, it allows students to interact, but maybe the complexity cannot be captured because things might need to be a little bit simpler. So it has to be carefully designed in order to have the learning experience, but students can be independent. And then if we think about completely virtual, or then of course, it can be complex depending on whether adequately complex models are included. It can be interactive, like students might be able to change a parameter and see, compute the effects of that parameter. But of course, it doesn't capture a physical realism and it's not tactile, but it could promote deeper conceptual understanding. So these are some of the pros and cons and other considerations. So there is safety, budget, staff workload, and student limitations. And so basically, each of these has its pros and cons in terms of what can be done and what cannot be done. So for example, staff workload on campus, there is real-time instructions and setups, but they're quite similar to what's usually done. But the setups needed for remotely engaging students are needed. For student work at home, it requires often a redesign of the experiments as well as assembly of kits that needs to happen in advance. And if it's virtual, then maybe some of the staff might need new training or some other new tools might be looked into. Of course, budget, there is variations. And then student limitations and equity, it's a major consideration. So sometimes students may not have good internet connection. So this requires a live internet connection. Then space is an issue, and shipping could be logistically an issue for students doing things at home. And then computing resources that the student may have available can be an issue if things are virtual. And this was especially a problem in our robotics class 212, where the faculty and staff spent a lot of time trying to get the student computers compatible with the software. And it was a much bigger challenge than expected. So how did the different classes adopt? And these are just some examples. So real time, one interesting example is that in Zoom, you can give control of the application being shared over Zoom. And so in our micro nano class, we have this desktop scanning electron microscope where students can put in different things like carbon nanotubes, even the MIT ring, and look at it. And what the instructor there, Dr. Benita Kumo, was able to do was to give students turn-by-turn control of the scanning electron microscope. So the students could actually remotely operate this instrument and interact with it in a live manner. So this was one very nice way for students to be remote, but still operate an instrument which was located in the lab. This was done in OOA, so the students built a terrarium at home. In the 004, which is the controls class, the instructor, Harrison Chin, assembled this kit and shipped it to students at home, so students could assemble a Segway, so inverted pendulum, and then program it so that it operated. And majority of the students were able to assemble it, program it, and get it to work. In 272, Elements of Machine Design, Professor Culpepper got these low-cost CNC machines and shipped it to students so that students could do machining at home. In 008, Design and Manufacturing, the students would normally make 50 yo-yos, but since that was difficult, what the students instead did was to use software for modeling or simulating manufacturing processes, and learn that software instead, which also has things like, what are the manufacturing defects, the statistics, and so on. And in 007, our flagship second year robotics competition class, which also Dan taught for several years, what was done was to shift the focus from building to CAD and thinking through the fundamentals of design. And that was enhanced by one-on-one interaction with the instructors to really get the students to think through the fundamentals of design. And so the focus shifted to more fundamentals. So going on, as things started, so April was the first month, there were other things that we looked at. So for example, we were concerned about how MIT's finances might be in the following year. And so we reduced the fellowship offerings to incoming students in anticipation of potential impact on funding. We also canceled the PhD qualifying exam scheduled for May. So this qualifying exam is mainly oral in nature. And we did a survey, and what we found was that all the students who registered for the quals, they uniformly reported that it is difficult for them to focus on studying. And many concerns were also there on an online format being untested. So that was canceled. And then we also started department community-wide forums just to keep in touch with people, connect people, and take any questions on broad matters. And then in May, about 1 month after this remote teaching experience, we did a student survey to get a sense of how things were going and also the outlook for the next year. So I'll share some of the results of the survey. So we had about 350 responding students, so it was a pretty good response rate compared to many surveys. And what we found was that the impact of COVID-19 on the overall productivity, students reported it was to a great extent for 56% of undergraduate students and 39% of graduate students. So a large fraction of students were greatly felt their overall productivity was greatly impacted. And similarly, ability to focus on studies, 61% of undergraduates felt that it was greatly impacted, and 30% of graduate students felt the same. And similarly, impact of remote teaching on learning, a large fraction of students felt there was a large impact. Many students felt isolated to a great extent because in some cases, students were actually living by themselves. And then there's various degrees of feeling supported by an advisor, with undergraduate students understandably feeling a lot less supported compared to graduate students. So this is one of the questions we asked. To what extent do you think remote teaching has impacted your learning? And we can see that not at all. Just one student out of more than 100 answered that. Very little, again, a very small fraction of students. And most of the students felt that there was a pretty big impact. And the student comments are actually very insightful. So if we just look at this, students telling that the transition has been particularly challenging on the mechanical engineering curriculum due to how hands-on it is. And 007, which is our robotics competition class, it was a great experience, but I missed out on a very valuable aspect of the course that the student will hopes to be able to recover at a later time. And the instructors of the class actually plan to hold the same competition and allow students from previous years, this year who missed it, to be able to participate in the future. Students are also saying that the motivation decreased because they are not actually, they're designing, but they are not building and competing with the machine that they built. So there is a sense that it's theoretical, but it, the rubber doesn't hit the road, so to say. There were other things that came out, nearly impossible to focus on my work and much more easily overwhelmed because it's much harder to reach out to friends or TAs or professors for help. Because normally there are, in face-to-face, there are so many opportunities to run into people, and it was a little bit harder for students to connect to people. And this theme kept recurring in multiple places. And so it can lead to lower passion, then not being able to do hands-on learning makes me think I'm not getting the most out of my education. And another student saying, I just don't feel like I go to MIT anymore. So those were some of the things that came up. And so the impact of the environment of learning was very clear. Then we also asked, what is your concern if fall semester is fully or partially remote? And 009 is our another flagship course, which is our capstone. And understandably, students were very concerned about that because they felt a remote version can never come close to the real thing. And then students reported missing out on the hands-on part of men's and manas. Athletics, of course, is an issue. If it's remote, it can't be done. Students were concerned about the value proposition of MIT education being lost. And this is both, it also is encouraging in a sense because it tells us that there is value in on-campus residential education. And this came out quite clearly. So although remote teaching can be effective, there is a much more added value in students getting together. And of course, there was reports of students not being able to learn as effectively. And students were really looking forward to these hands-on classes, which they were concerned about missing. And again, the impact of the environment that is created becomes extremely visible in these comments. And I won't go through this in detail, but many of the students indicated that if things are completely online, they may drop the semester so that they don't miss out on the hands-on and on-campus experience. So what are the key takeaways we took from this? So undergraduate students were very anxious about missing out on hands-on classes, and especially 009, which is coming up in fall. So students did not feel that remote learning cuts it. Lack of studying together and structured environment emerged as very big issues. And students were seriously considering deferring if things were remote. And of course, the students appreciated the effort that our faculty and instructors put in. And there were clear differences between graduate and undergraduate students, where undergraduate students were much more impacted. And many of our students actually had lost their internships or had no plans for summer. So about half of our students did not have anything lined up for summer. So what we learned, if we were to do remote teaching effectively, it needs to address these points. There need to be more personal attention and interaction, and this has to be a deliberate effort, and especially one-on-one interactions are important. And of course, it doesn't scale that easily, but this is what was clear is absolutely needed. Undergraduate students preferred synchronous classes because they could participate. But in contrast, graduate students felt that if there were asynchronous classes, they could be more flexible in their schedule. And so graduate students preferred asynchronous classes. Undergraduate students wanted more structured learning process. It was pretty clear that some hands-on component at home or remotely will have to happen to give that same experience. And then working some way for students to work in groups is important. There was some feedback about adjustment of workload, and then facilitating student engagement with the teaching staff is important. And another thing that emerged was the regular lecture, which is just recorded and posted asynchronously, was not that interesting. So going on, we were now starting discussions about various teaching scenarios as MIT was at the institute level started processes to plan for fall. And actually Dan Fry is part of that team. And so we discussed on different teaching scenarios, sent feedback to the institute, and then also started some programs. So 15th of May, we supported additional UROPs through the department and encouraged faculty to take on UROPs because so many of our students were still looking for something to do over the summer. We had a retreat. We have one at the end of each semester. This one was on lessons learned in spring and looking beyond COVID. We then also requested and obtained a waiver for our students for thesis tuition over the summer. So if students have no funding, they can do an undergraduate thesis, and that counts for academic credits. And then very recently, we launched informal summer activity platform to help the community connect. So let's see how we're doing on time. So we have about 12 minutes. So we did this retreat on education where we thought about, what lessons have we learned from the crisis, especially with regard to teaching remotely. What's the value of on-campus activities, and how do we really envision making education in the post-COVID era? And this is just a snapshot of the agenda. So we had several faculty and instructors talk about the spring experience. And then we have an education strategy committee, and Professor Searing talked about engineering decision-making as one of the key things that we need to focus on. And then we had discussions at the end. So these are just some highlights. So I'm not giving comprehensive coverage of what we did, but some of the things that came out. So in terms of lectures, students really like live presentation. So these are undergraduate students, and they like the two-way participation. And Zoom chat worked very well, especially with a separate person monitoring the Zoom chat. One-on-one Zoom meetings were very effective, and then there was less hierarchy in them. It was also clear that remote teaching created inequities because of different off-campus environments and access to resources. Students really appreciated doing hands-on work remotely. And there was this interesting experience with our 007 class, the robotics competition class, that students could focus more on fundamentals. So the instructors felt that the students were really forced to think more analytically, more carefully about their designs. But on the student side, they also missed out on the hands-on opportunity to build the robot. So there's the motivation factor, and there's also what they learn. And then faculty felt there's an opportunity to share resources with things going more and more virtual. new opportunities to engage guests and alumni, because in the past we are always thinking, okay, if it's a guest lecturer, the lecturer has to come to the class. But with the post-COVID era, maybe a lot of things can be done virtually and therefore more easily. And then we can extend our reach beyond just the classroom. And so some kind of hybrid interactions might make sense. The value of community and group support is extremely clear from this whole experience. And so we have to think more about how we can do this in a deliberate fashion. And we also felt there are opportunities to maybe conduct small pilots or experiments in education in this new age. And this is something we just launched last week. So it's a program similar to Independent Activities Period, where that occurs in January and it's institute-wide. But this one we focused more on the MECI community. And anyone who wants to share something, be it academic or hobbies, can schedule. And this is a way to engage students. People can talk to each other in small groups and foster a sense of community. So this is a bit of an experiment. We don't know how it will go. So far, a few people have signed up to offer activities ranging from cooking to software for illustration. And then at the end, I'll just briefly go through how we are thinking about fall and what were some of the discussions we had and how they evolved. Maybe Dan has already talked a little bit about this, so I'll go through this quickly. So at the institute level, our vice chancellor was in charge of these whole efforts of exploring different scenarios. And so this was May 1st, we are looking at different scenarios and how do we best prepare. So for example, what would we do if we had fully remote teaching? What if some students were remote and others in person? And how would we implement socially distanced education on campus? And so these were some of the options that were being considered. So for example, to enable all students to be on campus, maybe half the students are on campus for half the term. Would that work? And what we found is for our own hands-on classes, this is actually quite difficult to implement pedagogically. And so this option is no longer in favor. And then MIT also explored the possibility of having 3 semesters. And then more recently, this is as of last week, there were shortlisted scenarios and different considerations under which we can operate. And these considerations included, of course, a lot of uncertainty. So for example, there's this 2-semester format with a January start. And this might make sense if there is a vaccine available by end of the year, where instead of fall, we would basically have a winter semester and then a spring semester. So it would cut into the summer, but it might allow us to operate as almost as normal. But of course, there's no guarantee of a vaccine being available. And then there were other scenarios where here students don't travel over Thanksgiving and return back, so the chance of an outbreak on campus is minimized, and so on. So we started thinking about, what are the things that are important for the department. One of the key things was if we needed to pivot on short notice like we did in spring, it's extremely difficult for many of the classes and especially for hands-on classes. So it was important that any scenario and approach provided have a low risk of having to abruptly change course midway. Simplicity is important, otherwise administratively and other things become very complicated and place a lot of burden on administrative staff as well. Coupling academic and residential arrangements. So for example, if students are in a certain team, can they actually isolate themselves and live together? And that could actually help facilitate hands-on learning in a safer manner. do we need to provide additional or enhanced PPEs for some activities that require less than 6-foot distance? What should we prioritize on campus? And then also supporting students is extremely important, and being able to form communities, because many students are already thinking about how, if MIT doesn't offer residence, how they're going to work around it. So there are those factors which we have to consider as well, and especially in the light of the fact that remote learning is the environment becomes very important. And so even if the students are not on campus, maybe providing remote communities or online or virtual communities might be extremely important. And these are just some details. Maybe I'll skip this one. And a rough sense of what needs to happen over summer, because teaching is going to start, and actually there's a lot of work to be done. And so this was discussed in a recent faculty meeting as to how we could potentially prepare. And it's pretty clear for many of the classes, we are going to have to have suitable funding and support for faculty and instructors and TAs to be able to prepare over the summer. So this is still an ongoing process. So what do we need to think about? We need to consolidate the lessons learned from spring, identify under different scenarios how each subject might be handled. And of course, it won't be possible for everyone to teach on campus. And we have to take that into account to be able to adjust accordingly. And then this can be used to decide on what teaching spaces are there, how much funding or resources do different subjects need in order to prepare, and what kind of scheduling do we follow? Do we follow the normal scheduling, or do we change? So there's several aspects to consider in all of this. Safety is an aspect. Teaching spaces are going to be very limited, because if there's social distancing, then there's less capacity. So this would either mean to expand teaching space, remove some of the activity out of the teaching space to remote or classroom, or reduce the time that students have available in the teaching spaces. Safety protocols for each lab and each process. And we need to consider also instructors who are at higher risk. For hands-on teaching, we need to consider several categories of classes. For lectures, recitations, office hours, what are the best practices for fall? And what this spring revealed was there's a lot of challenges with respect to inequities between students being off campus or on campus. So many students say they don't have a quiet space, they couldn't find a table to work on, and so on. There is different access issues. So some students may not have adequate internet access or resources or software or computing power. Other students may have health or other concerns. And so all of these are things that we need to think about in advance. There's hardware and software that is needed for all of this, and scheduling of subjects. And for students who can't be on campus, maybe we need to provide alternate roadmaps with substitute subjects that they can apply for and still complete the degrees. And so, of course, there's different ways to do this. And so we can think about subjects in different ways. So if a subject can be taught remotely without compromising learning objectives and without significant effort or resources, and many lecture-only classes might fall into this category, then those classes can be taught remotely and adopting the best practices for remote teaching. Then there are subjects that can be taught remotely without compromising learning objectives, but they may need significant effort or resources to be able to do that. And that, of course, MIT has not yet decided which way to go, what format. So we need to take action depending on which scenario it is and whether students will be on campus or not. And if a subject cannot be taught remotely without severely compromising the learning objectives, then maybe we do not offer the that subject, but maybe we offer a substitute subject if it's a required class. or maybe we can move it to a different semester. And of course, there are some subjects which have some other constraints. And this approach of planning for subjects which are to be online, but then take additional hands-on component as a bonus. So this was proposed by Professor Patera, and I think he's going to speak in this workshop next week or soon. And the additional complication is that no matter what we do, there will be a fraction of students who cannot come to campus because either they have health issues, they might have visa issues or travel restrictions that will impact them. And so classes will need to accommodate both in-person students as well as remote students, and that creates an additional level of challenge. So, and then these are just a list of classes that are scheduled for fall, which have a major hands-on component. So again, there is like about 16 to 18 classes that need to deal with this. So that's all I had for today, and hopefully I tried to give like a overview of from the perspective of what happened in mechanical engineering, some of the timeline and what our department faculty did, and also some of the things that we learned. So hopefully this was helpful, and thank you for your attention, and I welcome any questions.
So you should feel free to use the online hand raising, or if I can see your video, just stick your hand up.
So while people are thinking about questions, I'll just make a comment, and maybe Rohit can also respond. Obviously, the spring semester was difficult because nobody had anticipated that was going to happen, and it all happened very quickly, and people had to adjust and respond very quickly. Had we had time and so the early notice and we were warned that might have happened, the preparation would have been done more carefully, and potentially the results and the response of the student would have been more positive. So that's one thing to keep in mind, that we cannot take the results of the spring semester as given or facts, that they're just a response to what happened in the spring semester. The second point I would say is that obviously making a transition towards online learning or to blended learning, where some of it will be online and some will be in class, will require many experiments, and will be a process by which some experiments will be done, some will succeed, some will fail, some will be lessons learned, and as we do more and more online learning, we will learn to do it better. So it's just a caution not to take the results of the spring as being a judgment either for or against online learning.
Yeah, definitely, I agree. And actually, many of the classes did very well. So very recently, we started getting the subject-specific evaluations, and what came out was that the environment that the students are in seem to have the most negative impact, and the inability to do things hands-on, that couldn't be captured without alternatives. So in some cases where kids were sent home or students did design at home, those worked out well. But in other cases where things get a little bit more complicated, that wasn't possible, and so students missed that. So I think the remote environment is something that needs to be controlled in a way, because that has the biggest negative impact. rather than what the instructors do for teaching. And so some of these factors are the students are at home, but then they don't have a space of their own, or they may have family situations which are very distracting. So those kind of things, I think, were one of the key factors why students were impacted. And of course, this was happening in the middle of the crisis, where students were basically just moved out unexpectedly. Many of them were looking forward to graduation and being with friends. And so all of those things combined together. But I fully agree with the points that there's more experiments that are needed, and things can be much better with more preparation and trying out different ways. But also, I would say many of the classes actually did do very well in terms of remote learning. Yeah, and I see a few hands.
I think the first one that went up was Sharif Hussein, so I'm going to unmute him. Do you have a question, Sharif?
It's still muted.
I have a question. Excuse me, sir.
Dr. Sharif Hussein.
Yes,
I think there's a
you can hear me now,
issue.
yes?
اتفضل يا
You
دكتور
can-
شريف.
Yes, I'm very glad about what I heard about the plans that MIT has made regarding a COVID-19 crisis. I have the most worries actually that concerns me is the financial impact in the long term for this crisis on top universities like MIT. So the point, it is not to make a very good online learning system. It is how to attract the students afterwards for the real value that MIT will give to the students, because we are speaking here about high tuition fees, which reflect the infrastructure, the talent of the professors that are teaching in MIT.
Yes, so I think one of the things that we learned is that students really value the campus experience, and it's a combined experience. So there is the environment in which it's conducive to studying. There is a lot of connections between people and the learning that happens through that. And plus, there are the hands-on experiences which are very difficult to capture outside a residential environment. And so there will be definitely things that can be done very well remotely. But I think there will always be added value when people come together, work in teams, and then and learn through that experience of working together on instruments. And that is definitely added on to what can be done remotely. So I think maybe in the future, some things might be remote or online, but there's definitely value on doing things. So I think if I were to think about it now, at least in the next few years, let's say after COVID, 5 years, I don't see a situation where the value of being on campus will be very small. But what is very clear is that the value of regular lectures on campus is not going to be very high. So if all that is happening in a campus is lecture-based classes, that is not going to be sufficient. But really, I think universities will need to think about what are the things that make residential education valuable, and be deliberate in designing those student experiences using non-traditional approaches like active learning, participation, and other approaches where it goes beyond chalkboard lectures.
There's a question in the chat from Mohi Mansour. Would it be okay if I address his question by sharing my screen?
Sure. I'll stop sharing mine.
Okay, so Mohi Mansour asked, where's the feedback of students regarding evaluation and grades? And we have some data on that I will share with you. So this, what you see on the screen, is a remote learning survey. And this question here we asked, the emergency grading policy that was switching to pass no record. The question was, did it ease some of the stress in the second half of the semester? And 65% of students strongly agree with that statement. So switching to pass no record grading reduced stress a lot, as you'd expect, because it's a lot easier to just pass a subject than to get the grade you wanted, like an A. On the other hand, there's this question we said, I am worried that the emergency grading policy of pass no record will hurt my, and then it didn't show what the rest of the question was, but the question was, will it hurt your,
You can scroll down with the scale bar on
I'll
the right.
try to scroll down. Okay, will hurt my future prospects for jobs or graduate school. And 35% strongly disagree, but 11 and 18%, that's still a lot of people. That's about 30% who either agree or somewhat agree, or strongly agree or somewhat agree. So there is a good third of our students who are worried that pass no fail had some negative consequences. One other comment I'll make is that there's going to be some discussion among US universities about the impacts of remote learning on academic integrity. And here MIT did not see a rise in academic integrity violations, but other schools did. So I think that was one benefit switching to pass no record. Our students, they didn't cheat either because they are really against cheating, or else because they just didn't have to because they only had to pass. I don't know what the real answer is, but that's a quick answer to Mohi's question.
Dan, can I just make a quick comment related to the same question? I had been talking to faculty about the pass no record, and from the teacher's point of view, this is not really a sustainable system, especially for core subjects. People are very concerned that for core subjects that represent foundational material, that we need to make sure that the students have gotten a level of mastery in before we build on it, that the pass-fail type system will not do. Because we need students, if they're going to learn calculus, then they will use calculus in fluid mechanics and thermodynamics and electric circuits, and unless they know calculus well, beyond a certain minimum, they will not be able to continue their education with any fidelity or quality. So while that was an emergency response, it's not really sustainable. And we need to figure out a way of going back to the ABCD type grading. And we also need to make sure that how we test the students and how we qualify them to move forward is as rigorous as possible. Again, eliminating the chances for cheating and infidelities, but making sure that they really know the material well, especially in core subjects. And we have many core subjects. I mean, in mechanical engineering, there's like 9 or 10 core subjects that they are supposed to know beyond the C level. So that's a challenge that we need to work on.
I agree very much. Yeah, I could see the level of engagement of students and on average, the amount that they, of depth that they had attained in my course this spring was very much compromised And I think it was more to do with switch to pass no record than to remote. I'll also point out that, MIT at one point, for the reasons of stress, had pass no record for 2 semesters, but we switched to pass no record for only 1 semester upon entry for the very reason that Ahmed mentioned, that we felt that 2 semesters of this compromised depth of learning, this idea of, being able to advance with only a D or a C was affecting the preparation of students for their upper level subjects. So MIT has moved to only 1 semester of pass no record, and I think it was an improvement. So there's another hand up. Would you like to go ahead and unmute and ask your question?
I think we have Professor Tamer El-Nadi, and then afterwards, Professor Nabil Sabri.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, actually, I had the first question, but you have just answered it about the grading policy for the next semesters. Will it continue to be pass and fail or back to the regular grading? But you said that you will be back to the regular grading policy, right?
There has not been an announcement yet. Actually, what I expect will happen this week is there will be an announcement that there is a continuing disruption. And MIT policies and procedures under a significant disruption allow the faculty to switch to pass no record grading, but they don't require you to switch to pass no record grading. The reason that they're going to announce a disruption later this week is so that they can change the academic calendar. Because normally to change the academic calendar, you have to take a vote of the faculty. And it's felt that the financial implications of the calendar change are too great, and we just need to make the decision. So they're going to announce a disruption so they can make a decision, but later they will decide about pass no record grading. And I hope they'll switch back to letter grading by the fall. In fact, we're already giving letter grades for summer courses.
Okay. My second question is about the entity inside MIT who, in the very beginning, who started to give workshops and plan and review the equipment and recommend softwares. Who is doing this?
Yeah, so we have an Office of Digital Learning at MIT, and the Office of Digital Learning basically has this program with digital learning fellows, and these people, they're basically people who have done PhDs in the disciplines, but who are conversant with learning methods, pedagogy, and digital tools. And the Office of Digital Learning supports 1 or 2 of these fellows or scientists across all the departments in the institute. And so they act as a hub, and these are people who straddle the department and digital learning. So we have 2 people in the department like that. One who is focused on our core class 001, which is Mechanics and Materials 1. And she teaches that class and offers a MOOC corresponding to mechanics. And then the other one was Dr. John Liu, who did these workshops. So basically, there is this network of people supported by the Office of Digital Learning that MIT was able to tap into to be able to do this. And we found that extremely critical because many of our faculty, in fact, majority of our faculty had never done remote teaching before.
So just as a brief follow-up, Dr. Tamer, Also, the department has one or two IT experts, resident experts. I think one of them is full-time and one is part-time. And they're normally people who you go to if you have a, if your laptop fails, or if you have a problem in the software, or some quick question about what laptop to buy. But they are well grounded on computing and communication, and they really were very, very helpful. as soon as the announcement was made that we're switching to remote learning, they went out and examined available hardware to help, like microphones and webcams and iPads, as well as the related software. So I used to have these things because I've done many online lectures and things, but many did not have those and did not have the time to go out and evaluate what the best microphone to buy and what the best iPad to buy and so on. So Peter Flans, who's our IT expert, was extremely helpful in that. And as Rohit said in the beginning, Peter actually went out literally and went to stores and bought iPads and cameras and microphones, knowing that there will be a rush on buying these things and they will be in short supply. He bought a whole bunch of them and then started passing them out or having them available, making them available to people who needed them. So there was kind of a institute-wide support, especially on the software level, but there was also local departmental support, especially on the hardware level.
Let's take a question from Dr. Nabil and then move on.
Hello, everybody again. I first want to thank Rohit very much for this informing and honest, in fact, presentation that I've learned a lot from it. I have just one quick remark before entering to the main subject I want to speak about, is the fact that I don't believe that COVID-19 is something exceptional, something that once in a lifetime. I don't believe that. We already have the SARS, swine flu, avian flu, etc. With globalization, chances for new pandemic situations are far from being slim. So we are speaking about a new way of life, a new era that we have to deal with and find sustainable solutions. My main subject is the following. It was about a survey that was done like 15 years ago in the UNESCO about asking students what is the most important element in their learning. How did they really learn? And they had many choices. One of the choices has received 70% of the answers. Learning from my colleagues. It's a bit strange. I was not surprised by the importance, but I was surprised by the level. 70% of students said that they have learned most, not by professor, not by the internet, not by any book, but by my colleagues. Now, when we have on-campus learning, this part of learning happens normally, and we don't care about let's say organizing it. It happens, and it's very fine. But when we go to online or blended or whatever, then we have the responsibility to find a suitable framework, platform, whatever, to let this happen, to let students learn from each other. I believe, in my opinion, this is the number one priority for next semester, to see how can this be done in an organized manner, not leaving it to happen, let's say, naturally, because it is difficult when you are not on campus. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Actually, the feedback we have from our students is very much consistent with this. because the thing that students were missing was student-to-student interaction, which is where, at MIT, for example, students will get together and work on problem sets. They will exchange ideas and work on the problems. So I think that aspect that happens organically was very difficult in this scenario. And that is one of the key things that came out from student feedback as well. So I think what we saw from this semester is actually fully consistent with the point you made. And we do need to think about what are structured ways to do it so that students can more easily work with other students. And I haven't come across like a really good solution so far in terms of what we could do to what will actually work effectively in a remote setting. So, but this is definitely a high priority. I fully agree.
So I'd like to move us now into the partner university's view, if I may. So can I give the floor to Professor Ahmed Hamed?
Thank you, Dem. Good morning, good afternoon. Welcome to our second session. For this was planned at the third session, but the second one is shifted to another day. It is my great pleasure today to be moderator of this part of the session. And I'd like to thank Professor Rohit Karnik for this nice presentation. And to be aware of what is going on, and before presenting the speaker, I'd like to remind the participants of some questions which then asked at the beginning of the previous session. This question may be some of them answered by Professor Rohit now, and for the speakers and the participants from the partner universities from the Egyptian side, I'd like to repeat these questions. I extracted them from the presentation of Professor Danfra in the last session. What changes were made by each partner?
Sorry, Dr. Ahmed Hamed, I'm very sorry to interrupt you. We are having problems hearing you. Could you perhaps raise your voice?
Okay, I will take the microphone near to me. Do you hear me now?
It's a little better.
Little better, okay. By the way, I decided to come to the campus today to join the session because I had a problem with the network at home.
No, it's okay. We can hear you better now, as long as you're close to the microphone. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I will continue the questions of Dan for the last session to remind the audience about what is going on. Next question, how was educational assessment affected by the transition to remote learning? And in what ways we can be better prepared for the future disruption? I can see Dr. Tamer joined us and Dr. Adil Zain from Aswan University, and the third speaker from Mansoura University will be Asma Khater. So each partner university representative will give us around 10 minutes to share the status at each partner university, and the rest time will be allocated to Q&A discussion. Now I'd like to basically introduce the speakers from the three partner universities for the Egyptian side. From Ain Shams University, Professor Tamer al-Nadi, Vice Dean of Education and Student Affairs. From Aswan University, Professor Adil Zain, Dean of the Faculty of Energy Engineering. And from Mansoura University, Asma Khater is an assistant professor in the mechanical or engineering department. Now I will give the microphone to Professor Tamer Nadi to start his 10 minutes. So Tamer. So Tamer, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear. So should I start now?
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so I would like to introduce my colleague here, Dr. Khalid Kira, who is the head of the specialized programs here at Ain Shams University. He will give more information about the feedback of the students, but generally I have just some general comments. Is that what I saw from the presentation today, that MIT was much more prepared than us, and but I guess their students, MIT students, were as shocked as our students as well, because we as professors, we were involved some kind of another in some online sessions, some online meetings, but I don't think that students have been involved in such meetings before. So it was completely different experience for them. They did not know what to do, and added to this is the sociological part of their life, because they were what the feedback that we got from students, that they are worried from the situation, they are worried from the virus, they are worried about their families. Some of them have sick parents, for example, or something. So this thing also affected their attention to their study. This is something besides the difficulty of attending online classes and relying more on themselves. Unfortunately, in Egypt here, it's students rely a lot on professors. We are trying to move towards student-centered learning techniques so that the students do things on their own a bit more. But well, maybe now they have to do it because they are on their own at home, and they have to rely on themselves on doing several things and look for information in different places. But the good thing is that we sometimes used students as a quality control of the teacher performance, because they were very quick in complaining if something is not properly done in a certain course, or they did not understand. They were eager to understand. They were eager to start studying from the very beginning. So they used to send us emails and calls and complaining from some courses where the teachers did not put enough effort in their lectures. They complained about the quality of lectures. They complained about, some teachers, they just uploaded some PDFs. Also the scheduling of uploading lectures was not very good, because sometimes they upload two or three lectures or 4 lectures together. So the students, they get lost. These 4 lectures do I have to study them this week? So there was a problem of scheduling as well, because of different teachers responding in different times. So these are general comments. I'm sure, as we saw also from this presentation, that we are now better prepared for what's coming in the future. Teachers are better prepared. They know what to do, and students are used to this method of teaching. So hopefully things will get better in the next semester. We are planning to go online for summer semester with a smaller number of students, with smaller number of courses, just to check, and we are planning for full grading. We haven't got the final approval yet from the university, but we are hoping to go to this experiment with few students and few courses. So I would like to give the mic to my colleague, Dr. Khalid, who will give you more insight about the feedback of the students.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Tamer. Hello, everybody. My name is Khalid. I am currently the head of the specialized program in the Faculty of Engineering at Shams University. I will present now our experience during the Corona crisis and how we delivered around 200 plus courses in the specialized programs. First of all, we asked all instructors to deliver all material in only one platform, which is our learning management system, LMS. And then we established some kind of monitoring system to see how the courses are progressing. And we had a weekly report sent to each head of department to tell him what is going on in the material in the courses delivered by his department. And I think this was very useful to catch up with courses which were not going in the beginning. Then we had, of course, the feedback, as Dr. Samir said, we had the feedback of the student very fastly. And I will first explain the three methods the doctors were using to deliver the courses, starting from the worst one or the one which was not very successful and going on to the best one. The first method was just to post PDF files or PowerPoint files accompanied with audio files or audio explanation. And of course, this was not accepted by any means by the student, and they refused it because they could not follow the course. They just see the presentation, the PowerPoint, and there is an audio with it, and it was not successful at all. However, some instructors use it because they could not. They knew that this was not the best method, but they did not have the opportunity to deliver through the next two methods I'm going to explain now. The second method that the instructor came here to the university and we prepared a room for them, and we are able to record video of the lecture exactly as if it was inside the lecture room. This was a little bit, this was better than the first method. However, it lacks the interaction of the students. The best way accepted by the student, which is the third one, was through interactive lecture, but it requires tablets or laptop with pen, which was not very affordable for the most of us. And in this way, the professor, the instructor had his laptop or tablet, and the students are invited through Microsoft Teams or Zoom, and it was completely interactive between the student and the professor. And I think this was the best method we used in this work. In plus of all this, we asked the professor to organize forum. For example, in physics, which what I teach, we have 1,600 students. So this is a big number. We organize ourselves, all the instructor, for the 5 days of the week. Each instructor is available for 2 to 3 hours online, again on Microsoft Teams or Zoom, to answer the students. So each time I only have 100 or less students to ask me, and this was very successful and appreciated by the students. This is what regarding the lectures and the problems. There was another experience regarding the experimental part. Most of it was through recording videos in the laboratories or the workshops, and just the instructor is performing the experiment in front of the video, and the students are seeing it. And sometimes the instructor can take measurement and post them to the student, so they can make really the experiment, but not by their hands. They just take the measurement from the instructor and make the experiment by themselves. In another way, we did simulation labs. We have some internal experience in preparing experiment by simulation, and the link was posted on the learning management system. The student just can make the whole experiment on simulation, and I think it was very successful and very appreciated by the students. I think this is a brief summary of what we did during the last 3 months in this crisis. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Khalid. Thank you, Dr. Kamel. And if anybody have any questions, you can use raise hand and unmute your microphone and start to speak directly.
Yeah, Dr. Khalid, is there any experience with the exams and the grading?
Exam and the gradings, we were forced to use the system implied by the university, is that all exam, there is no real exam, but just reports and research items, not real exam. But we tried once to make exams through our learning management system, and it was an MCQ exam, and the system is capable of shuffling the question, and I think it was not very bad. It was okay. But other type we did not try. So it was either research or MCQ exams during our learning management system, or project, research or projects, the same idea. But our intention is that during the summer semester, if we are allowed to do it, we'll go on further in the idea of making exams online. Because the learning management system, which is model, has so many capabilities of making several types of exam. You can make your own question bank on Moodle, and it is very good. And we tried it, but with not real marks. And we made an exam, we put it on Moodle, and we asked the student to try it, but it was not graded. It was not graded. The grade was not taken for us, but it was successful.
Okay, any additional questions to Dr. Khalid? No, to keep our time, we can directly transfer to Dr. Adil Zain. Dr. Adil, do you hear me? Thank you, Dr. Khalid.
Thank you.
Yes, I am.
Okay. Take your time, Dr. Adil.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. I know this session relates to mechanical engineering, and I am not lucky because I am not belong to mechanical engineering department as most of you. Anyway, I try to focus my presentation on the views of the students on the action. Do you hear me?
Yes, yes, okay. Go ahead.
On the action we have taken during the education disruption. As the first, actually, we did the same like other universities, like establish education platform and uploaded courses in format of PDF files, PowerPoint videos. And about the exam, it falls between research or online exam. Actually, I know it is too early to try to explore the result of what the Faculty of Energy Engineering did with remote learning during Corona.
There is some noise with the voice.
Okay. Actually, I know it is too early to try to explore the result of what we did with remote learning, but I would like to share with you the result of a questionnaire carried out by IT unit in our faculty. Not only on the students of mechanical engineering, but in the students of the two departments, as we have two departments, mechanical power engineering and electrical power engineering. I will share my screen. The goal of this questionnaire is to measure the
I think we still have a problem with your voice, Dr. Adil.
Definitely,
Can you do something?
only about 20% of the students participated in this questionnaire. According to their academic level, only students from the first, third, and fourth year participated, and the majority from the fourth year, about 21%. According to their academic department, about 57% from mechanical power engineering department and 43% from electrical power engineering department. When they were asking about the effective contribution of the technology of remote learning on the education process, about 14% consider the technology of remote learning had an effective contribution on the education process. And unfortunately, about 43% did not consider that. When we were asking about the availability of course resources, the same percent, 40% consider the cost resources are not always available. When they were asking about the needed skills to use the technologies of remote learning, needed skills for students, about 86% consider the material skills are needed, and 40% consider that it is dependent on previous experience of each student. When they were asked about the transition ability from traditional education to remote learning, about 57% consider that is not suitable in this time with available facilities. While about 29% accept the transition as it is, and about 15% accept the transition, but in the same time they consider that it will be of less interest. When they were asking about their impression about this transition from traditional education to remote learning, only about 14% have a positive impression, and unfortunately about 57% have a negative impression. In the conclusion, they say that, in their opinion, they say that the advantage of the remote learning save time, effort, and costs, reduce the suffering of travel between sessions, help students to review the lecture at any time, and they also provide us for suggestions, such as the material of courses should be supported by video, assigning an e-learning unit to solve their problem, and also the shortcomings in their opinion, slow pace in solving the problem facing students, most of the problems relate to signing in the e-learning platform. The lack of necessary infrastructure for the remote learning is an important point. The lack of necessity of infrastructure, also lack of monitoring of the remote learning process. With that, we know that we have
do you use headphones?
and now we are working to solve this. Thank you.
Do you hear me, Dr. Adel?
Thank you.
Hello, Dr. Adel Zain?
You hear me?
Not at all, but the slides may help us in understanding what do you want to say, because we had a problem with the voice. No. Anyway, is there any questions to Dr. Adel Zain, Aswan University?
Excuse me, I am Professor Adel El-Shabasi from Ain Shams University, Faculty of Engineering. I have a question concerning the soft skills. Do you hear me now?
Dr. Adel, do you hear the question now?
Yes, okay. There is some soft skills which the student can learn from the professor interactive. So we cannot ignore this part or this point from the disadvantages of remote learning or e-learning. The other thing that the fast solving the problem of the student. So if there is some interaction, question and answer during the lecture or during the tutorial or the lab, this can help a lot for the student. If they don't understand something, once they ask, they can ask and then they get the answer. And sometimes the subject itself build on the previous part. So if the student did not understand one point in the middle of the lecture or the tutorial, then he cannot follow the rest of the lecture or the tutorial. I asked another question previously to Dr. Dina, but about the hybrid teaching or hybrid learning. My question is...
it was answered on the, Professor Fry answered your question on the chat. If you'd like, I can read out his response.
I didn't, sorry, I didn't take care of that. Okay.
It's okay. No problem. I'm trying to find it. I'm sorry. Here we go. Yes, he said regarding your question was regarding hybrid teaching. And he said, yes, MIT is interested in hybrid or blended approaches. However, data suggests that when some students are in the classroom and some are remote, the learning is usually less efficient.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so that's not just my opinion. The Dean of Digital Learning at MIT told me he feels very confident that the data at this point support that statement very strongly. If MIT could go to all in-person or all online for any given class, it would be much better than having to try to mix. That makes managing the classroom quite difficult, and not much evidence of success wherever we look.
Yeah, and I think some situations where this might need to happen is, let's say, if we have something where on-campus or in-person education makes a lot of sense, but then let's say about 5% of the students are not able to be on campus, then that's where we would have to do something hybrid. But it is going to be harder than fully remote or students being all remote or all on campus.
Yeah, I think one of the difficulty is how do we define blended learning? I don't think that has been defined as well as it should be. So there could be blended teaching and there could be blended learning. And I think the impact is different. So for instance, you know, if the two people are teaching one class, one is remote and one is on campus, that's sort of blended teaching, and it might work in some cases. For instance, lectures can be done online and recitation and tutorials can be done in person. That might be a good model for blended teaching. But of course, I agree that blended learning is difficult when some students have the advantage of being on campus and the rest have the disadvantage of being away. That will create a problem in equity for sure.
Yeah.
No, thank you for your input. To keep our time, I think we must give the microphone now to Asma Al-Awadi, the representative of Mansoura University. Asma, do you hear me now?
Yes, Dr. Ahmed.
Okay. Take care for the microphone and your voice, and go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Hi, everyone. I am Asma Khater from Mansoura. I will just check the pointer. I will share my screen. Can you see the screen right now?
Yes, okay.
Yes. Okay, and my voice is clear for everyone?
Nice, nice.
Okay.
Yes.
Hey. Okay. Hi everyone, I am Asma Khater, an assistant professor at Mechanical Power Engineering, Faculty of Engineering, Mansoura University. Today I am going to present the strategy that Mansoura University adopted to continue learning during the COVID pandemic. Here I will start with the timeline that represents the main decision made by Egypt Supreme Council of Universities. First, the suspension of study started on March 15 and renewed every couple of weeks and continued till the last day of the academic year. And we were asked to upload all our educational contents to the already existing learning management system operated by Mansoura University. On March 27th, the midterm exams were canceled and their grades were added to the final exam. The last day of the academic year was announced on April 30. Since that date, no online materials were uploaded. On June 6, we started the online exams for first, second, and third year students. On 4th of July, we are planning to have a class exam for the senior year. And the oral exam for the graduation project is planned to be online. Now I will explain in details the learning management system utilized by Mansoura University. Then I will highlight the online system and the class preparation and precaution for the class exam. The learning management system used by our university is Model. The portal of Mansoura University for educational contents is accessible through this link. The website is available in two versions, Arabic version and English version. Here are some snapshots for the for Mansoura University portal. Here, there is the welcoming page with the ability to choose the faculty. Here, some videos, some instructional videos that help the students and faculty members to log in the system, use the system, upload their contents, and make full use of the features available for Moodle. Although Mansoura University ranked first as the best university at the level of digital transformation and the first electronic university in Egypt, we still face some challenges, mainly the low internet speed at some areas, and even some students don't have any internet at all, which make it harder to deliver live lectures. So to solve this problem, the number of lectures have been reduced to 1 per week, also the tutorial as well. And the lecture time and tutorial time became limited to 20 minutes. The maximum uploading file size is 250 megabytes. And also some instructors made online meetings to get the student feedback and answer their question. These meetings were recorded and uploaded to the Moodle to help the students who are not able to attend these live meetings. Also, some instructors use no graded quizzes to estimate the ability of the student to understand the course contents. In the following slides, I will present the different ways that used by instructor to capture the interest of the student and simulate the real class lectures. Some instructors use the faculty utilities to record their lectures. Some use handwritten, whether if they are on paper or a tablet. Others use PowerPoint presentation or other softwares to help the student to understand. And some have some non-traditional, let's say non-traditional resources. They have boards on home or use smart TVs to act as a projector. Some use Zoom to deliver live lectures. Some use some software to teach them how to go through the mechanical drawing. Overall, in Mechanical Power Department, we have 325 videos have been uploaded for this semester with PDF files. However, few instructors have uploaded files with only PDF format. For lectures, the percentage was 11%, and for the tutorial, it was 3.5%. The main challenges faced instructor was the number of students per course, which is relatively high. The total number of undergraduates in our department is 1,081 students, and the total number of instructors is 34 and 17 teaching assistants. For example, in turbo machinery course, we have 272 students with only 2 instructors, which hides the mutual interaction between student and instructor. Although this, the model gives the feature that you can view who downloads the lecture, and create some discussion rooms to answer the student question. For this course as well, which is the turbo machinery as well, we have the activities student will range between 40 to 70%, which reflects the effect of the previously mentioned challenges that face the student to log in the system. Here is some feedback from the student using from different applications like Google Forms, Facebook, WhatsApp, voice notes, and Telegram. I am trying to turn on these videos, but I believe they are not working, so I will use my cell phone to let you hear the recordings from the students. Please let me know if...
I'm Muhammad Ali, the coordinator of third year, and on behalf of my colleagues, I'm reciting the pros and cons of e-learning. Let's talk about the pros first. Since most of the students aren't from Mansoura, it has been difficult for them to travel from home to college on a daily basis. The e-learning made this much easier for them. Therefore, it saved much effort, time, and money. It also lessened the stress of missing out, because it was vital to miss lecture and sections. Cons. First of all, the practical part of the course is missing. The failure of infrastructure in some areas in Egypt makes it incredibly hard to rely on the network. We are not included enough in the whole process. We don't get regular assignments to encourage us to follow up.
This was the first feedback. The second feedback?
Care for the voice. I cannot hear the voice of the student.
Online learning in general has a lot of benefits and goals, like saves the time, effort, and the cost of transportation from home to a university, as well as it's easier to revise and go back to your syllabus and lectures. For Mansoura University experience in particular, these goals were well achieved, in addition to meeting the required social distancing due to COVID-19 with their platform, which was stable and didn't have any network issues. Furthermore, the platform was well recognized and
Asma,
This is
you
the...
may...
Yes.
Hello. The voice of the students is not so clear.
Barbie?
Okay, the voice of the students is not so clear for me.
So I believe this one is clear.
My name is Ahmed Ali. I'm the coordinator of the third year of mechanical engineering. I will talk briefly about online system and its impact on us. It was a good experience, but it needed great improvements. We lost the interactions with our professors. It was hard to just understand recorded lectures. There were questions to be asked. Also, there was no schedule for lectures. Sometimes we find many of them are uploaded in the same time. Also, we needed some live sessions for us to ask some questions to help us completely understand. Thank you. Completely understand. Thank you.
I believe this is enough for now.
Yes, enough of the students, enough now, and you can go ahead.
Okay, so as you can hear, the main issue with the student was the lack of interaction and the non-regular schedule of the lectures. However, they are happy with that. Most of the students in Mansoura University are not living in Mansoura city, so they need a lot of transportation to come to the school. So this is like the positives and negatives feedbacks from the student. For the online exams, question banks were created for each courses and to be used as a guideline for these exams. Unfortunately, we don't have a strategy for exams during the pandemic periods, such as the alternate grading slide showed by Professor Fer in the previous meeting. So we followed the other university regulations and the exam were graded as pass or fail exam. But I believe now we can develop a good strategy to face future challenges. Also, these courses have no effect on the students' accumulative GPA. The online exams are prepared to be solved in 1 hour. The student log into the system and they have 6 hours to write and upload their answers. Our university system used for online exams is called MyU, which is available as a browser-based and mobile app as well. Also, a team of faculty members were created. This team is acting as a technical support to communicate with the student during the exam period. The time helps students. This team helps students who face problems such as logging onto the system, downloading their exam, or uploading their answers. And the process is somehow soft now because we are having the online exams right now. For the preparation for class exam that will be on July, for class exam, disinfection and sterilization protocols are employed to reduce the risk of transmitting COVID-19 through the university campus. Also, a guideline for the infection prevention are available online through this link. Thank you. Any questions?
Very good, Asma, as usual.
Thank you.
I have a question about the online exam. How could you prevent the cheating between the student and something like this? And as we heard before, for the ثانوية first and second year of ثانوية عامة, they have a center cheating to solve the template exam or something like this. This is the first question.
Okay, so for the question, first we have 5 models that randomly goes to the students, and also we have the ability to track the IP address. So if we have 2 exams have uploaded from the same IP address, it means that they meet together and they answer at the same moment. Specifically when the exam is when their model of the exam is the same. So it means that they solve it together. So we are eliminate this solution and give them the next round, which I believe will start within 2 weeks after this round.
And the second question about, do you mention that there is some difficulty about the power of internet generally in Egypt? So at the time of the exam, could you be sure that every student or everyone should take the exam at this hour? He have internet and everything is okay?
Yeah, we are working under a team, and oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Asma, go ahead, okay.
Okay, so actually we have a schedule for the online exam. It tells us each student when they will have, each group of the students when they will have their online exam. For example, we start most of the exams at 9 a.m. So the student log into the system at 9 a.m. and the time required to solve the exam is only 1 hour. It's no need more than 1 hour time, and have 6 hours that he can upload wherever he have some stable internet. We also give the student feedback about that they already uploaded their solution, so they become trusted that their answers have been uploaded properly. Also, if the size of the exams are very small and just in some kilobytes, and the answers should be not more than 5 megabytes. So it makes them, they can use even the internet using the mobile internet, and without using that much data and not have a lot of expenses on the students.
Okay, any other questions to Asma? Dr. Nabil Sabri, do you have any input? Dr. Nabil?
I have a question, please.
Okay, go ahead, Dr. Tamer.
Dr. Asma, our students nowadays are not that naive anymore. So detecting the IP address they are logged in from is a very good thing. But is there any way of detecting the students who are going in through VPN connection?
I'm not sure about the answer of this question. I believe this could be like this answer have the answer of this question maybe with the IT of our university, but I believe they are doing their best, and I believe the student don't have to cheat because they have a question bank which guides them probably how the exam looks, and we have a trial for the exam before the exam, so the student have we are put our hands on the main problems and we solve it before the real exams started.
And did you do this for the final years or the not non-final years?
The online exams are for first, second, and third. The final year will have a class exam, and their schedule have been uploaded recently to our system, so they will be present physically on the campus.
Okay, thank you.
You're very
Thank
welcome.
you, Dr. Tamer. Dr. Nabil, you unmuted yourself. Can you give?
Yes, I just wanted to say that this is a new experience, so we have to learn from it. Fortunately, it didn't start in Mansoura with the COVID. It has started a couple of years ago. It was not, let's say, followed by everyone because there was no urgency. But as COVID came, we did profit from what has been done before. We had all the infrastructure needed to do our work. So, but again, we are not claiming that we are perfect yet. That's very far from that. As for the question of Dr. Tamer about the exams, in many cases, every professor was asked to upload a large number of questions, and students could know these. I mean, the whole set of questions. I don't remember the number. I mean, it was a big number of questions, and the exam, which is a pass-fail exam, should be within these number of questions. So if the student knows, let's say, the answers to 500 questions, then so what? I mean, he knows everything, so whatever. So I think combating cheating this time was not an important issue because any serious student would pass. But next time it's different. It is different, of course. And this is a real challenge.
And one more comment, like these exams are already take-home exams, so the students have all sources available that they can use internet to find the answers. So cheating between them is somehow, I believe, is not the issue. Because they have an open source, they can find the answers.
Okay. By the way, I would add something here. Asma is the youngest faculty member in the mechanical bar department, and Dr. Nabil usually proud of Asma and for her activity in the department. But I want to add something at the end of this session. I'd like to say one of the most important case to distance learning and distance evaluation is understanding the way institutions and the professor think and the students' mindset. This may vary from one community to another, depending on the purpose of education process. In some societies, priority may be to obtain a degree. This is considered one of the obstacles to human development in society. I think this problem exists in our society, and getting a degree may be the interest of the majority of the students. So we need to enhance the students to change their mind, to stress on get a good learning and to be graduated with a high level. The first thing to acknowledge is that this big change for all of us, finding ourselves suddenly living and learning and working alongside our students in isolation from others. And maybe one of the positives of the pandemic is that we meet regularly in these sessions to discuss solutions and alternatives in the educational and research processes. I think we have already 10 times passed the scheduled time for us. And I may ask the last question. Is there anybody have questions to Asma?
Dr. Ahmed.
Okay, go ahead, Dr. Mahi.
Well, we didn't see much about the statistics of the student feedback. Did you get some, statistical analysis of the student feedback, not just to the representative of each group and giving you the feedback for the whole group?
We are collecting the feedback, and we are the whole experiment. So the semester technically not ended yet. We need their feedback after the class exam and online exam for the 2 rounds, and then we will have all these statistics available for all universities in Egypt. This is our plan for the next. Maybe it will be available by the end of August.
Okay, that's great, because I was asking also Professor Dan Fry about what actually positive experience we got from the COVID pandemic so that we can use it in our future teaching and learning methodologies. We don't have to take all the negatives, but maybe we can ask questions and trying to highlight the positive part of this problem, and then we can move it to feed it in our system when we come back face to face. Not only focusing on questions that showing the negative part, but also asking about what can be positive.
So Dan is still joining us.
Yes, is there a question from Mohammed Khalid?
Yes, Dr. Dan. Firstly, I want to thank Dr. Asma and all of Mansoura University about the nice app that they made. I think that it's a great idea. And I want to to ask Dr. Asma.
Thank you. Yeah. Go ahead, Dr. Muhammad.
I want to ask you about what if one or more students have some problems while they are while they are testing the exam, while they are in the exam. What if they have some internet problems or something like that? Do you make another chance for them to repeat the exam, or what you decide about this point if you think about it?
Yeah, I got your point. So I am one of this technical team for representing mechanical engineering. So we faced some such problem that the student can't upload their answers. We keep trying and we communicate with the IT to check if the problem is from the student or from the student or the internet at home student or from our server in university. And if there is some problem, we can help the student with it. After that, if the 6 hours passed and the student failed to upload his answers or her answer, they can have another chance for which will be start, I believe, within 2 weeks from now. So if they miss the first trial, they will have another trial to upload or solve their problem and prepare more for the next round. And also we have the trial. So this technically will be their 3rd trial to upload their answers.
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome.
I
just have a comment for Dr. Ahmed about the team. I would like to thank you for giving me the opportunity to present today. And I would like to thank all the team working with me, specifically my godfather in mechanical engineering, Dr. Muhammad Nabil Sabri. I'm really grateful for you and for all my team, Dr. Muhammad Sameh, Dr. Osama Abdurrahim, and Dr. Muhammad Ragab for supporting me and helping me to give the feedback from the students. I also would like to thank all the members and the attendees, and thank you for your feedback and your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Asma. Finally, it is good morning, good evening, or good day. I hope you have enjoyed it, everyone. Safe and doing well, and we hope you will be participating in the next session, and we can say bye-bye for all. Thank you.
Goodbye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone. And I do want to encourage you to register for the next session because it will be a very special opportunity to hear from the College Board about remote assessments. And thank you so much to everyone for your robust participation.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Dan. Thank you.